Good evening. This is Dee, and this is Critical Break. It is a Thursday evening here in the US, and we got a break from the bitter cold. Thank goodness. And we were up in the 40s today, so those negative temperatures we were seeing are gone. Yay! But I am wearing a headset tonight. Hope it looks good. You guys like it? Anyway, uh, I wanted to start out tonight talking about we're going to have a lot of new people in our group chat, and not the live stream chat, but our actual group chat. And I wanted to remind everybody that many of us are in varied states of awareness and also various stages of our progression down our path. And um, the MTHFR gene that we all have is very prone to uh, what they call a spectral disorder. I do not call it a disorder. As a matter of fact, I look at it as something quite different and quite the opposite. Um, I see us as angels, but um, basically, what I wanted to get out there was to remember that we're going to have some that are not as far down their path and they haven't learned um, some of the control that we have over our abilities. Good evening, Sir Tony. But they haven't learned how to control some of their feelings and they get overwhelmed. And I just wanted to remind everybody to be patient with each other. We're all family here. And that I know you guys know that. And so always keep that in mind. Also, we're all key holders. Um, I got that message from my friend Gabriel. He told me we are key holders and we each have pieces of the puzzle. Some may have bigger pieces, some may have smaller pieces. But the big thing is to remember that what we feel in our heart is fact, could very well change because I know while doing my own research, I've had to change my position on things several times. So keep that in mind, stay open, and consider that somebody else's ideas might actually be correct and yours may not. So just keep that in mind. We've never had a problem in the chat or anything like that. But I just want to make sure everybody's really hyper aware. Good evening, Sir Sky. My Sky is 5D. It's good to see you. Um, the other thing I wanted to bring up this evening is I've been around the U or the ew tubes for many years, since 2007. Maybe actually a little sooner than that, but 2007 on my IC Lies account. And I can tell you that the majority of the supposed truth channels are not telling the truth. There's a bunch, and I know most of you are intelligent enough and have enough abilities to see through um, some of the things going on YouTube. But I just wanted you all to be aware that there are factions out there that would try to take advantage and use your abilities to benefit the negative. And I feel very strongly about which side I'm on. I chose my side. The side is for the planet and for the people. That's my mission. That's why I'm here. It's for you. I'm here for you. Um, and there is no amount of money and there's no amount of anything that could get me to work for their side. So I just want to put that out there so that you all are very aware of where I stand. I will not work for corporations ever, ever, ever. Not to their benefit in no way, shape, or form. So just be aware that there are people that have agendas, and I want to protect you all from it. And I feel like a protective sister, a protective mama bear, and anybody that would do anything to hurt you all makes me absolutely furious. But I try to tame that fury with the you always have to keep in the back of your head. We are manifestors. And so if you let the negative overwhelm you, we could manifest in their in their side of the field, and that's the last thing we want to do is benefit them in any way. So I just wanted to put that out there and let you all know that. Um, uh, I go into protection mode immediately when I spot somebody trying to hurt you guys or use you. So I just wanted you to know that. Anyway, good evening, Miss Tawny, Sir Steve, Miss Muse. Hi, how are you? Good to see you guys. It's really great to see you. I have a guest tonight. I'm so excited. Spirit of Truth has returned to us this evening, and we have amazing, cool stuff to talk about. And what we decided to do on the um, stream this evening is her and I are just going to talk. And we haven't really, we had, we thought about making notes and we decided we're just going to start talking and let you all basically sit in, eavesdrop on what we talk about. So it's going to be interesting and informative, and you all are going to be shaking your heads like this, and then you'll be going like this, and it's going to be one of those nights. Anyway, I will introduce Spirit of Truth. Good to see you, Spirit. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
Doing awesome. I'm going to do a quick audio check. Can you guys hear both of us? Just let me know in the chat. So good to see all of you. Sir Tony, you're so funny. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise you if they had us working for a bunch of reptoids. Exactly. Yep.
Hi, Tawny. How are you?
They're so amazing.
I'm getting a little more technical. I can actually read the chat. I got an icon. I'm doing good.
We were laughing because she was having a little bit of trouble signing in this evening. I was laughing at her because she was telling me stories about her first time using a computer, and that was pretty interesting. So we were chuckling.
I'm used
But
to it. I get laughed at a lot. I just laugh with it. What else you gonna do?
Right. But anyway, you know, I think um, the thing we could start out with is what we were talking about the MTHFR gene that we have, and that's
Oh
one of
wow,
our
are we
common
really
links.
starting?
And
Okay. Okay, are we really starting there? Wow, we're just
we're
jumping
gonna
in
jump
on
right
raw meat,
in, right?
huh? Okay, so you had brought up MTHFR when we were talking earlier.
Oh yes, yes. I was talking about how we. I had a question about if one of us could be corrupted because there was a picture that I saw, and it's somebody that's high up in the opposing team, so to speak. And when I saw the picture of this person, I instantly knew he was one of us because some that happens sometimes. You like, it's like that instant recognition, and I was like, is it possible that he's one of us? I mean, is that even possible that they could be corrupted? And the
Right.
answer is yes.
Yeah. So the question is, can somebody be here on a spiritual mission and yet behave in extremely unproductive and not so good ways? Yes. And so I hope your peeps are ready for this because I'm about to knock down some serious, real knowledge.
Awesome.
Um, this is going to get a little bit heavy, but it's incredibly important that people understand this. And it's, years and decades of research that has uncovered this kind of little nugget. So, when we were having the conversation before we went live, and you had said, I'm posing this question, but I'm going to hold it till we're on air. And I said, yeah, because that leads into there's a reason for that. And there's a reason for the MTHFR and, um, and the endocrine system. So they all tie in together and it works to their advantage, which is why exactly they've targeted those systems. So, and the really messed up thing is they've known it for decades, if not centuries, and actually targeted on purpose. So, here's the thing. So, we know MTHFR and other autoimmune conditions affect the endocrine system. Your endocrine system is all of your hormones in the body. Your hormones regulate not only the function of the body, but the function of the mind as well. So every single organ and your um, emotions and thought are regulated by these chemicals that are produced by the endocrine system. Now, back in 1934, there was a book written by a Dr. Knapp who did incredible research on the endocrine system and first found that you could treat hormone problems with endocrine organs donated from animals. And he began treating people's endocrine systems and studying the endocrine system. And what he discovered was that in certain conditions of the endocrine system can render a person moronic. It can create a cretin, what they used to call cretins, which we would call mentally retarded, or in probably a lot of mongoloid children got put on that list. A lot of what we would call autism spectrum today. But all of these are affected by the endocrine system. And it's interesting that he called the endocrine system the guardians. I kind of call them the gatekeepers. My discovery into the endocrine system after decades of real experience and watching what happens not only with my own body and mind, but those around me and in my family. What I realized is when my endocrine system is doing well, I can hook up with God, the universe, the angels, guides, whoever. When my endocrine system is thrown out, I cannot make that connection. Your endocrine system is an integral part of the mind, body, spirit connection. And you cannot, it is absolutely impossible if some of your endocrine levels are off to what would be called in Christianity, feel the Holy Spirit, what would be called in other religions, but feeling the Kundalini energy. It may be called connection to spirit, connection to the divine. None of that can happen when your endocrine system is out. That was the discovery I made. The discovery Dr. Knapp made was that the endocrine system not only, and he was calling it guardians, and I never quite determined why, because I call it more gatekeepers. But anyhow, whatever you call it, he determined that people can actually become criminal because of the shape of their endocrine glands. So if the pituitary is in a certain condition where the front or the back, whether the front or the back is swollen or shrunken, will determine the person's behavior. And these endocrine glands have been targeted with chemicals and pesticides and all kinds of other things. So when that system gets thrown out, a person can act in ways they would not normally. Now, another thing that you and I have talked about before, which relates very closely, and especially with MTHFR, is aside from this function, you have the problem of somebody with MTHFR often gets an overloaded liver, kidneys, and adrenals. And these people can black out. And when they black out, you may not even know. I mean, they'll walk around, they'll answer questions, they'll argue with you and make their points and all kinds of things like that, and make their arguments, and you think you're talking to a conscious person who's just gone insane, when in actuality, the person's unconscious. And yet they're walking around, they're talking, they're making arguments and debating, but they're not acting their self anymore. they're acting in, very inappropriate or ugly ways.
Yeah.
That happens with MTHFR when the liver gets overloaded. And the liver can get overloaded with drugs, chemicals, poisons, the bad food additives and things like that. So even food can make one of these people black out. Now, when the person blacks out, then the being who is running that meat body, that vehicle, is now unconscious. That means somebody else can hop behind the wheel, right?
Yeah.
So we have several things all colluding here to make for a very bad situation. First off, you have the endocrine system, which all by itself can be toyed with to make somebody criminal, to make somebody an addict, to make somebody full of anxiety. It can even throw off a person's balance where they can't walk. You ever seen people do the old people walk where they just shuffle along, only moving their feet inches, an inch or two at a time?
Yeah.
That's endocrine system. They don't have the stride that they used to have, and that's a direct result of endocrine system disorder or malfunction or malnutrition. So you have the endocrine system, then you have the MTHFR, which further presses on the endocrine system and also causes people to black out and run around and act crazy. And then that opens them up also for like possession, if if you will.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of issues with that, which makes it incredibly important for people with MTHFR or any other endocrine or autoimmune disorders to keep extremely clean in your food, in your water, in your thought, in your environment, in everything.
Wow. You know, Miss Tawny had a question for you. Is the HPA axis part of the endocrine?
HPA axis
Hmm.
of the endocrine.
Is it part of the endocrine?
Is she talking about the hypothalamus pituitary axis? Honey?
Um, yeah, Miss Tawny said that she's had some balance issues with her symptoms. I've had that too, vertigo.
Yeah, Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
pituitary adrenal. Okay.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And what you're going to need, Tony, is probably adrenal and definitely pituitary. I'll tell you how you can tell the difference. Okay, your hypothalamus is going to affect you mostly with your circadian rhythms. If you want to stay up all night and sleep all day, you have trouble getting up in the daytime. You know what? I'm so sorry. Y'all can probably hear that, right? Okay, look, this is what happens when you do stuff live. So
It's okay.
I just inherited a dog, and I did teach him to bark to say he wanted to go out. So it's really not his fault. I'm going to take you with me
Oh,
and
no
let
problem.
this big guy out. Um,
You don't have to worry about it. You could go just let him out. You don't have to take us.
he's a big beast. He's a huge beast, and he makes lots of noise. Okay, but he's out now. Uh, so, yes, Tony, the hypothalamus, if you are having trouble, getting up in the day or you're sleeping too much, It could be hypothalamus. You'll probably, though, want to take that at night. And what's going to happen is right after you do, you'll get sleepy. About, within about 30 minutes, you'll get sleepy. Now, when that happens, you want to go to sleep, because if you miss that opportunity, you're going to miss your opportunity and you won't get it back for several hours. You'll be up all night. So be sure when you take your hypothalamus that, you take it about 30 minutes before you want to go to sleep. And when the sleepiness comes, just go ahead and go to sleep. You should get up at a regular time. When you start finding yourself sleeping too much, sleeping too late in the morning, then it's time to lay off the hypothalamus. So the biggest indicator for hypothalamus is your circadian rhythms and your sleep. Hypothalamus also does have some to do with body temp too. So you might notice if you're having hot flashes or your body temp running too high or something, that you may see a change there. But remember to pulse your supplements always. None of this stuff can you take every single day and keep taking it, because like we were just talking about, it will stack up on your liver. And so you want to pulse your supplements, and we can talk a little bit about that in a minute. But so that's hypothalamus. You're going to notice a change in your sleep and your maybe even body temperature. The pituitary is kind of your master gland, and that one, again, you can't take it every day. It's going to be an on again, off again thing as well, because you may need it, you may not. You may need a little bit. You may need it once a week, once a month. It's very individualized. I can usually tell when I'm getting too much pituitary. My mouth begins to dry out. So that's kind of what I watch for on that. And then the adrenal is probably one that's going to have the most to do with you being dizzy or vertigo, stuff like that. And that one you may need the most. The way you can tell on your adrenal, there's several tells for adrenal. One is, excuse me, the capillation under the eyes, which is the red circles or red half circles or quarter circles under the eyes. If you see that red, that's capillation, your little capillaries. That's an indication of adrenal fatigue. Another really good tell is your hips. Square hips are definitely low adrenals. So, it's one of the questions we ask each other, when we buddy each other and one of us is sick and calls the other, hey, have you checked your hips? How do your hips feel? Oh, they're fat. Oh, you need some adrenal. Or, oh, no, my hips are nice and flat and good. They're not poking out. Oh, okay, well, then our adrenals are good. We're looking for something else. So when those hips pop out and they get square, all those ladies with, the square hips or the big hips on top, and then the small little buns underneath, all of that is endocrine imbalances, and most of it is adrenal insufficiency. So your eyes and your hips are real good indicators of adrenal. Also, you can tell by somebody's stance, their shoes, and their gait if it's adrenals. With adrenals, they will have weak ankles. So if you've had weak ankles all your life, or every time you run, you sprain your ankle, then you're looking at weak adrenals. And so if somebody walks on the outside of their foot, that's weak adrenals. Um, so you can look at somebody's shoes. Some people actually walk so much on the outside of their foot that their shoes will be worn on the outside edge, and their heel will be at a slant. And you get their adrenals straightened up, they'll get their ankle will start strengthening, and that foot will turn upright, and they'll stop walking like that. So those are real good indicators of adrenal fatigue or weak adrenals if somebody's walking on the outside of their feet, if they have the square hips or the capillation under the eyes. So, Tawny, you can look for those, and that should help you determine which one to do, and then just be sure and pulse your supplements. You cannot take any of these every day on a permanent basis. They will stack up on your liver and you will have problems. So what you want to do is you want to take something until you feel much better and then stop. Once you feel better, stop. Once you start to feel bad again, start again. Or if you're taking it and you're feeling good and you keep taking it and you start feeling bad, stop taking it. Pretty much whenever you feel bad, whatever you've been doing, you need to do the reverse. So if you've been taking all your supplements every day and you feel terrible, maybe there are certain ones of them you need to lay off, or maybe you need to lay off all of them. And when you lay off, it is generally going to be between 1 and 3 days. And then you're going to want to start again on at least certain things like, your thyroid and your glandulars, your, B vitamins and things like that. Because sometimes you have to lay off all of them in order to clean that liver out and feel better. But that's exactly why they've targeted us the way they have, because when you affect somebody's liver like that, you knock them unconscious, and then you have, access to that vessel, that body. Also, you can get them to do horrible things, and then they start to fight with their family, and they lose allies and support and credibility and everything else. So, being bad guys, it was a pretty slick move on their part to target us in that way. And Tawny, I hope that information helps.
Yeah. And we talked about that in the past, because I was told that we were targeted on purpose.
Yes.
And
I told you the
you
same
felt
thing.
the same thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, they knew that we were coming, and
They knew
they
we were coming.
saw us right
Yes.
away because we emanate a certain energy. And those, even those family lines have been targeted because there are certain groups that come here created their own vessels, their own bodies. It would be like if we had different countries moving into a strategical area or an area to do the rescue missions, and you had several countries moving in there, they'll all bring their own vehicles. Well, it's the kind of the same for us. These bodies are vehicles. So people from certain places created certain genetic lines. And so those genetic lines should hook up with us good, but they've been targeted. Not only, like I said, the genetic line, but when the beings get here and take those bodies, they emanate an energy that is visible. And I mean, it's just like I was telling you, like one of the first times we talked, I was telling you it's like the opening of a nightclub when they send up the big light into the sky.
Yeah.
That's kind of how we look to those guys. So it's very easy to spot us.
Bright lights in a sea of black.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So we're very easily spotted out.
Sir Tony, by the way, flat feet are very common with us. My mother has them. And it's also a common sign of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, just so you know. Anyway, sorry. He said something about flat feet, so.
That's fine.
But yeah, we do feel like, not feel like, I'm certain we were targeted.
Oh, absolutely. Had we not been, this thing would have been so over so long ago, because all of us would have been able to go on and do our missions. And um, I know in the case of my people, um, they kind of got um, delayed. And we were already so tired when the delay happened. But it's like, hey, it is what it is. You know, sit in the foxhole until it's over. We can come get you. You know, and so we waited out that 4 years, and it was pretty miserable. And we were about, spunt at the end. It was just like, oh, thank goodness it's over. And all of a sudden, oh, we have another 4 year delay. And that was almost just devastating. And we barely came out of that thinking we can't go another day. And boom, we're hit with another delay that's been 2 years now, almost 2 years now. So, for those of us who have known that and have been waiting, especially since childhood, remember being dropped off and waiting for this time, it has been the most horrible tease, and nobody did it on purpose. I'm not saying that, but it's just, like when you get yourself really psyched up for something and then you don't get it and you get disappointed. And
Yeah, you're waiting for go time, right?
yeah, we did. Well, we just so needed the reinforcements. We were so tired from the beginning. And then, the first delay, we thought, oh, we couldn't possibly. And we did. And then when the second delay came up, it was like, oh, no, 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 this can't be. And yeah, it is. It was. And, coming out of that, we were just, so excited for it to, finally be time. And then, nope, yet one more delay. And so, um, we're getting pretty excited again, and we're pretty damn exhausted too.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how many other, how many people from other places that those delays affected as well. But everything's kind of a chain reaction. So I'm assuming that other people have been through similar kind of stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
whether they know it or not. Like some of them may not have even known all that was going on and all those delays were happening. They just hadn't been activated yet. But even if they weren't activated yet, just being in the human condition under the conditions we were under was, has to be devastating for everyone, whether they knew it, or not.
Yeah. And when we were talking before, we talked about, we both said it almost the same time, that we're dealing with worst case scenario. And we didn't think, when we signed up for this, we didn't think it would get that bad, but it has.
Yeah, well, I told you in my case, I absolutely 100% for sure, for certain know that we encountered, one of the absolute worst case scenarios. Um, and, that happens for some of us. And, it's kind of what you agree to coming in. But, the good part is we get to go home. And, the bad part is when you get there, you'll get bored again.
Probably sign up for another crazy mission, right?
I hate
Yep.
to say it.
Yep. Yep. Very true. Good evening, Aaron. Welcome. But yeah, the, you know, I have trouble with what they call dysautonomia, and I've always run a little bit below normal um, on average, but I have actually been running at 96.6 degrees body temperature.
That's common. Low basal body temp is
Hmm.
common. Um, and if you can get your liver, kidneys, and adrenals handled, always be watching those three: liver, kidneys, adrenals. I mean, that's like the key to keeping you on the road. Now, you may have other things as well. You may have, estrogen or testosterone or um, uh, thyroid or hypothalamus, pituitary, any of those others. And I suggest if you're out on one, uh, you probably need to have all glandulars at hand. Well, maybe not all. Okay, let me be clear for everybody. You need to have pituitary, hypothalamus, adrenal, thyroid. You can get all of those in natural forms online. Just raw adrenal, raw thyroid, raw pituitary. Um, and on those, you want to uh, figure out which ones that you're down in. And most of them you won't be able to take very much. And if you can get the adrenals, the liver, kidneys, and adrenals going and in balance, and you can just modify the other glandulars here and there as needed, get your nutrition, then that should change.
Yeah.
You should be able to bring the body temperature up to normal. You'll go through some change when you do that. I've had some people already go through those changes of going from chronically low basal body temp to all of a sudden now they're moving up into a regular body temp. It can sling you for a little loop for a second, but then it balances out and you're at normal. Um, but that can take a little while to get everything balanced out. And the main thing, like I said, is do use your other glandulars intermittently. Do pulse your supplements and your food, even with
Yeah, I'm
intermittent
learning a
fasting.
lesson on pulsing B because I am toxic in B6.
Right. And that can happen with your methyls very quickly, too.
Oh boy. Yeah.
I mean, listen, I took methyls for just 3 days and became over methylated to the point of dizzy, doing minor seizures, and almost passing out. from like 3-4 days of methyls. So, when I say watch that liver, kidneys, and adrenals, I mean it. I mean, I just really want to pound that home that if people can learn the signs and symptoms of which ones they're dealing with there and keep on top of those and keep those clean, then everything else can begin to fall into order.
You know, I think that your story about how you came to realize who you were is fascinating. And I think it'd be cool if you can or want to, if you could share um, some of that process that you went through.
Um, okay, and I always have difficulty here because I'm not sure how much to share at this point, but I mean, I basically have known since I was a kid because I remember, I've always remembered my whole life the experience of when before I was age 4. And for a lot of people, that um, there'll be certain ages that certain things happen to people, and that will have a lot to do with where you came from. It's very strange, but that's true. Depending on the age you were when some key things happened, will have a lot of bearing on where you come from. But I didn't know that. That's just an observation I've made based on where people are from and the age at which they're telling me things happen. But anyway, um, before I was 4, I actually remembered and was actively being, number one, taken up into ships and taken to school. I call it sacred school, um, where they were teaching us certain things, trying to get us to do certain things while in human form. And then I also remembered uh, when they told me that they were going to leave, that they were going to have to shield me. They were putting a shield on me and they were going to be leaving. Um, well, let me tell you the other thing I remembered also was what I called going to see my other me's. And my other me's were actually other dimensions where I was going to view my existence as there just because I found it interesting. So it'd be like a thing that I would do, and I'd be like, quote unquote, daydreaming. I was actually going to other dimensions and just kind of hanging out, watching what I was doing in those other dimensions. And we called it traveling. Traveling included not only just going to see yourself in other dimensions, but you could travel timelines, you could travel, you know, quote unquote places, um, like going back home or going to other places. So travel included like several different things. But um, anyway, I used to travel before I was age 4, and um, I had a couple of favorite me's that I used to go watch all the time for different reasons. They were my favorites. And then at age 4, my people came and they said, "We're going to shield you and we're going to go and you're not going to be able to see us anymore and you're not going to come to school no more. And we'll be watching you and you'll be fine, but you won't be able to talk to us like you have been. And you won't be able to travel and you won't be able to go to school, but it'll be okay because we'll be watching, but we won't be coming to see you." And I flipped out. It was like dropping off a 4-year-old at a daycare. I mean, I flipped my lid and I just, just like a 4-year-old. I mean, no, no, don't leave me, don't
Don't
do
leave
it.
me. Yeah.
Please, 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 don't do it, please. And they said, no, we have to. And they went ahead and put a shield on me, and and then they left, and I was crying. And when they left, I thought, they're lying to me. And I was sitting on my bed, and I immediately jumped off the bed, not my body, but me. I jumped off the bed and took off in a specific direction toward one of my favorite me's. Going, because they told me I couldn't travel no more, and I wanted to make sure I could go see my other me's. And so I jumped up and I went off that direction. And as soon as it was coming into view and I was just about to reach there, it was fading away and it was gone. And boom, I was back on my bed. And I was like, whoa. And I immediately turned to go to one of my other favorites, and I couldn't even get off my bed. And then I knew they were telling the truth, and I just freaked out. Um, I fell down in the middle of the bedroom floor and just cried and grieved like never before. And there was no one for me to talk to about it because I already knew that my parents and everyone was under anesthetic, under anesthesia. Nobody remembered anything. Nobody would know anything. There was no point in talking to anyone, and there was nothing I could do about it. And it was the most devastating feeling I've ever had in my life. It was the first time I experienced grief, actually. And so I've always remembered that. And after sitting there crying for a while, it was a conscious thought that if I cry enough, they'll come back. And they did not. And after crying for a while, I just decided there's no use in it. It's not doing me any good. I'm stuck here. I can't believe they left me in this barbaric place, but here I am, and I'm left here, and I'm just going to have to deal with it until they come back. And
Mhm.
so I stopped crying and got on with my life. And I always remembered that. I always knew that. I always remembered also that before age 4, I knew everything had consciousness, to the point that I think I told you about this, about the shirt. Like,
Oh yeah.
I knew everything had consciousness. My dresser, my bed, the floor, the house, the uh, everything.
It's all
And
energy. Mhm.
yeah, and so I knew. And you know how when you're young and you're clumsy and you can't put on your clothes very good or something. And I can remember trying to put on a shirt and being very clumsy at it. And instead of course, taking responsibility for being clumsy, being, 3 or 4 years, I think I was 4, maybe even 5, I blamed the shirt, and I actually bit the shirt because I knew it would know that I was displeased because everything had energy, and I knew that. So, the idea that everything is consciousness and everything is energy has never been new to me. Um, what's been new to me is the idea that people wouldn't know that. But I always knew that stuff, but nobody else knew these things, and I was kind of here alone. And my team had been, um, let's just say, taken asunder. My team was immobilized, and I was here alone, and there was nothing I could do but wait for them to come back. And so that's what I began doing. And always had a spiritual side to me and always seen strange things. For example, seeing, Mandela effects as early as 5 years old with the heart moving. Most people think the heart just moved once recently if they remember any heart moves, but I remember when it got to the left side before it went back to the middle, because it actually started out in the middle when I was a child. And then it went to the left when I went to kindergarten and started saying the Pledge of Allegiance. And I was like, what the heck? They're saying it's over here, Mom. And she was like, yeah, it is. And I was like, what? You said it's over here, okay, whatever. And then there was, other incidences, when I was 8 and all through my teens where I saw Mandela effects all the time, but nobody else did. So I just, to me, that was normal. It's more weird stuff that, you know, I go through and nobody else does. And like I said in one of my videos, I think probably other people think this is in some way exciting or interesting, and I guess I can see why they would say that, but if you live it and if you have lived it, it's been anything but. To me, my life was one big, um, just
Stress.
one big mess after another, and one big problem after another, one big fire to put out after another. Um, you know, big long series of seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah.
you know and so to me it's been anything but glamorous, pretty, or even interesting. I mean, some of it, if you can't share it with anybody, it's not that interesting. You know what I'm saying? It's just more weird shit that's happening to you that you can't talk about to anybody because, of course, you'll look like a crazy nut.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it can
It's
be kind
very
of lonely.
isolating when you're not around others like you that have experienced the same things.
Yeah. Or even people who haven't necessarily experienced the same things, but things that the average person doesn't. You know what I mean? Because, like, I know of a lot of people that have gone through a lot of things that I haven't, and I haven't experienced that. I don't know, what that would be like exactly. I can only imagine. But just because I haven't experienced it doesn't mean I don't believe they have.
Now,
And
remember, I told you I was going to ask you something, and I've put this out there a few times. Um, it's cerebral, it's a deep thought thing. But I have contemplated this Mandela effect a lot.
oh, me too.
And we, being manifestors, creators, is it possible that in our awakening, because there's a lot of people awakening right now, a lot, and it just seems to be getting faster and more. Um, is it possible that this awakening that's happening is creating the Mandela effect?
Well, I mean, we've talked about this a couple times. That could be a lot of things. but
Because we manifest.
right. But yeah, manifestation happening faster, and as you were asking that question, I was thinking about my kitchen and how the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away.
Hmm. It's like what if somebody else in their awakening threw off the time sync for everything and your stuff disappeared and then you remanifested it because you were thinking about it? That's my son. He just walked by. um, what what if? I mean,
Yeah, I mean it's possible because I'll tell you the like I was telling you about all my crazy kitchen and what's going on with all of that recently. Um, the more that I observe things that I find not optimum and let them go instead of holding on to them, just observe them and let them go. For
mhm,
example, behaviors of people around me that are, say, inappropriate or non optimum. When something like that happens, instead of becoming upset by it or sucked in by it or pulled into that energy, just observe it, let it go, and then focus on what you do want. And, I've been doing an awful lot of that. And it just seems like good Mandela effects are coming that are just totally baffling. Like, look, I've been seeing Mandela effects my whole life, and I've been seeing weirdness my whole life. And, to me, weirdness is just like passe. It's like normal for my life. I've had men of nerves of steel come and, for example, like stay at my house for a while, hang out with me, work with me, run with me, do me with me, do my life with me or my work with me.
yeah,
And some of them, some of the very strongest can only handle that energy for short periods of time before they just either burn out or wig out because there's so much weirdness around. And whereas I just, number one, I go at a certain speed that's faster than most people can handle. I have two speeds, on and off. Okay.
yeah,
Off is freaking off. I mean, when I say off, I mean off.
yep,
And when I say on, I mean it's on.
mhm,
And so when I'm on, it's very hard for people to keep up with me. And so just the speed of my motion, number one, is difficult for people around me. But then when you couple that with the fact that tons of weirdness happens, and the faster I move, the more weirdness happens, then it gets like people just can't handle it. I mean, it's really hard to
we are very difficult to live with.
hang with me because the amount of strangeness around will plumb freak somebody nuts. I mean, like I said, I've had guys that just nerves of steel. Like nothing shakes these guys. And one of them came and stayed with me for a month. And when his relief came, the guy came back in and said, "What in the hell is going on? I've never seen him like that in my life. He's white as a ghost and scared as hell." I said, "Well, there's been some strangeness." That's, to me, that's what it is. Well, there has been some strangeness, but, see, to me, it's so normal that I don't find it very strange, and other people can find it incredibly disturbing. And so when I start to get a little shaken, you can bet it's like a lot of strangeness from a lot of directions. Now, granted, right now, most of the strangeness is either just neutral, benign, or actually positive, you know. Um, so I'm having a bit of a better time with it. Um, but certainly, if I look at times when the strangeness was not in such a positive manner, you know, where a lot of the strangeness was like creepiness happening around me,
Mm-hmm.
being stalked, you know, by multiple people or groups, or I don't even want to go into it, but
Oh yeah.
you know, those kind of things, all at the same time. I was a lot sicker then in body, and so my thoughts were probably of a more negative nature, and my outcomes were more negative. Now that I am healthier, which came with, you know, realizing I was in the wrong arena and shutting down my business and just taking time to heal. Um, and as that has occurred, the strangeness has gone from creepy to just, you know, strange, and some of it pretty cool. Like, you know, the things we were talking about just recently that were all very positive Mandela effects.
Yeah. The you know, it just it crossed my mind one time. I'm like, what if we're the ones causing all this? As far as
Yeah.
the Mandela thing, because it's probable.
Yeah. What if you create your own reality? And
Hmm.
you absolutely do.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. That's actually one of the things L. Ron Hubbard taught, is that you create your own reality. You know,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of that is true. At the same time, he also said one of the only sins that we commit, or one of the only crimes we commit, is being there and communicating.
Yeah.
So, and which is also true. Um, you know, the only thing we ever did wrong was to be there and communicate. And you know, look at what messes we've created at times. And part of it, I think, goes back to exactly what you were asking about earlier with, um, you know, can there be guys that are good guys that are acting as if they're not? Um, and yeah, there is. It's about focus and energy. And you know, where you focus, that's what's going to magnify, which is why I was talking about, I've had a lot of Mandela effects happening around my kitchen. Well, there's been a lot of concentration on my kitchen area recently.
Hmm.
You know, just thought and energy put in that direction, a lot of it having to do with, um, you know, healthy foods and getting my body healthy, and you know, this dog I inherited, getting him healthy. And so there's a lot of mindfulness in that room, a lot of thought into, you know, the life of that food, and the life that it's giving us, and the health that it's giving us. So there's been a lot of mindfulness and a lot of activity in that room, which could explain, you know, why there's good Mandela effects happening in that room right now.
Very well could be.
Yeah. Hmm.
I know I've never heard anybody bring that up before, and I was just sitting here contemplating one day because of my ability to manifest. I'm like, what if other people newly awakened that don't realize that they are manifestors are throwing things off?
Well, how about this one? Even people that aren't awakened don't realize they are manifestors.
Hmm.
Everybody is manifestors. Everyone. Whether they realize it or not, whether they come from somewhere else or not, whether they've been trapped here for a long time or not, doesn't matter. They're all manifestors. So when you take that into account, you see how this thing could get messed up, because we discussed that the only solution to that, like, people's instinct is to want to get even or want to get revenge or set something straight, make things even again, right? And so that's the inclination. But hate begets hate. You
Sorry.
know?
Tony was leaving. I was just saying goodbye to him.
Oh, that's okay.
Sleep well.
But hate begets hate. And so the only thing we can do with people who are um, manifesting inappropriate behaviors, the only thing we can do with that is continue to love them. Because when we try to get vengeance or hate or be angry, as much as we want to, I want to too. Look, I've been a victim. My, father, who was my best friend, was murdered 2 years ago. And makes me very angry because somebody he had taken care of for years did it. So like that and a lot of other things that have happened, my business being ruined, my family being victimized. I mean, just so many things that I could be angry about, or hate over, but it simply won't do any good. All it does is add more hate, more anger, more of all of the negative. And so the only thing we can do is to love those people. It doesn't mean we approve of their behavior. And it doesn't even mean that they should be always free to run around in society, right? I mean, sometimes it's necessary to, lock people away until they can get a hold of themselves. But we don't have to hate them at the same time.
Right.
Because the only way out of this is to change it. And the only way to change it is to love them out of it. You're not going to hate evil out of the world. You're never going to hate evil
It
out of
feeds it.
existence. Huh?
It feeds it.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And so then people wonder, how did we get here? Well, that's how we get here. Because instead of viewing something that's non-optimum, observing it and letting it go, we tend to, even me, all of us, tend to grab a hold of it and get involved in it in some kind of way and get entangled in it. And that only expands that negative or evil energy. And so the only way out is to love our way out of it. Even if we have to take measures. If somebody breaks into my house, he probably gonna get shot. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
And I will shoot him if somebody breaks into my house. I will do it. But that doesn't mean I have to hate him. I just have to stop him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I got 6 bullets to try to get a kneecap before I pull the 9 and start just blowing everywhere. You know what I mean? So I try to give them every opportunity, but if it comes down to it, I'm cool with, shooting an intruder in my house. What I'm not cool with is hating him.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to hate him too, on top of everything else that's going on. Do I want him locked up? Do I want him stopped and locked up? Yes. I don't want him to scare the shit out of anybody else or to hurt anybody. But I don't have to hate him at the same time. We can lock them up. We can still love them. We can feed them well. And we can make sure they don't hurt anybody else. but we don't have to add to our own misery by hating them on top of it. We can observe it and let it go and love them anyway. And that doesn't mean we're an apologist, because we're handling our stuff. I ain't apologizing for nothing. He broke in my house, I shot him. I don't see any apologies there, but we can take care of our stuff and be safe and not have to hate at the same time. It's just not necessary.
Yeah, I agree. You know, we're really, how should I say, we're really very fair is fair and fair square kind of people. So it's very easy to fall into if somebody's doing something wrong, to jump straight to battle. And I've had to learn that grabbing the bull by the horns, they will bait you into fights. They will do anything um, to grab negative from you.
Yes, and look, I get that I threw that out very casual, like, oh yeah, just observe it and let it go, and then love them.
That's
Like,
really how it has to be.
well, I know I threw it out like it's really easy, but like for a lot of people, it's going to take a minute to be able to do that. Even me, it takes some time sometimes. And sometimes all you can do is say, I can't find love for my enemy right now. All I can do is find the space to not hate them, or to be neutral, or to not think about it. And if you got to do that, you do that. And you try to just look at it, observe it, and let it go without jumping into the energy of it. And it takes practice. But when you can do that, whole lot of stuff is going to change for you. Whole lot of stuff.
That's
You got
true.
to start really loving your enemies. And, I talked about in one of my videos that I knew I was on a no-kill list, and I didn't know why. And I had a feeling that I somehow earned it. Like, I did something to earn that. Something happened to get me that status. And it was a very definitive thing. And there was something I was thinking about that I thought did it, which was being sealed. I thought when I got sealed, maybe that happened. But I'm not 100% certain. But it's interesting that after I did that video and said, I know I'm on a no-kill list, but I don't know why or how I got on it, I went and saw a video, and I don't watch his stuff a whole lot. I haven't, but for some reason I clicked on a David Wilcock video, and he talked about being on a no-kill list. So immediately my ears perked up, because I'm like, oh, he's talking about the no-kill list. And what he said was that you earn your way on to the no-kill list. And I was like, what? Because I kind of had a feeling I'd graduated to that, or earned that, or something. It was given to me. It was earned. But I still didn't remember the particulars about it. Although I did, like I said, I thought it had to do with being sealed, as in the Bible being sealed. And then David goes on to explain that you earn being on the no-kill list by being honestly and earnestly engaged in pursuit of the betterment of man or your mission, whatever, whatever that, if you are, honestly engaged in solutions or your mission or whatever you want to call it, then that gets you on the no-kill list. But people can be attacked through their endocrine systems and their DNA, and like we talked about, the liver and adrenals and kidneys, and all of that can lead to very bad behaviors where the person is no longer doing their mission. Like they've turned their energy has now mutated to the negative. And that's how it mutates to the negative. Every time that you're upset with somebody, and rather than observe it and let it go, you hold on to it, you're transmuting some of your positive energy into negative. By the same token, every time you observe, you let go, you love, you forgive, you do something purely out of an altruistic motive, then you work your way toward getting on that list. And the only thing that really spares you is ending mission early, really, I think. I don't know. That's what it seems like to me. It's not like it's any big prize to be on the no-kill list if you have a certain perspective.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Especially if you want to go back home.
Right,
Okay, I'm
exactly.
so worn out. I just want to go back home.
Exactly. Like for some of us, that's no big prize. Like, oh, great. Now I'm really stuck here until I finish my mission.
Hmm.
But the good thing is we're manifesting faster and we're doing better. So, hopefully it won't be long until our missions are finished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. As a matter of
I
fact,
feel it coming.
I got news today that mine is not going to take me as long as I was thinking. But what that means exactly, hell, I don't know. I mean, I don't know everything. That's the one thing I've said 1,000 times. I don't know. I don't know everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Good evening, Sir OR. Wonderful to see you. The I'm, I think about all the things that have happened, and the way I describe it is we have lived 1,000 lifetimes in this one,
Mhm.
literally,
Mhm.
because we all um, go through so much. It's but it really helps if you sit back and you think it's not all for nothing
Oh no.
at all.
Oh no.
We have an amazing, we're here at a very amazing time, I think.
Oh,
And
absolutely. Just like I told you, my favorite saying is, it's this what's happening right here, right now, is the best show in the whole cosmos right now. And we
yeah,
got front row seats. Get your popcorn, get your drink, because we got front row seats, baby.
organic popcorn.
Mm, and there is nothing else like this going on anywhere else right now. What's happening is, amazing um changes for the better. And so it may be a little unstable, but it's like I described it as the pull the tablecloth trick, right? You pull the tablecloth out from under, And when the dishes all fly in the air, it's very unstable for a half a second until they fall back down and land beautifully. And that's the stage we're in right now. We're up in the air, but we have a master pulling the tablecloth. So everything's going to come back down and land perfectly. It's just right now it's in the air, so it feels a little unstable, but it's all cool.
Yep. Sorry, I had to cough.
That's okay.
But let's see. What else would you like to talk about this evening? Anything else?
Oh, did we want to talk about my other Mandela effects? Because I didn't answer your viewers last time and I felt bad about
Yes,
that.
yes. Let's do that.
Because, like, some of that had happened then, and I didn't mention it. I remember I told you on the phone, it wasn't that I didn't want to answer the question and that I was trying to say, well, you got to come watch my show. I really didn't mean it that way. It's just like I told you, I went blank, and so I just went blank on it because, like I said, for me, weirdness is kind of normal. So it happens. I, observe it and go on. But yeah, it did have some weird ones that I probably should have mentioned last time. Um, Last time I know the cast iron had already happened. And what that was is I had a set of cast iron skillets and a set of glass cookware, Visions, Corning Visions cookware. And when I moved into my house, I put those two together in a specific cabinet, in a lower cabinet. And a few weeks ago, I went to rearrange that cabinet, and lo and behold, all my cast iron skillets were missing. And I had had a lot of theft going on and stuff, but it was pretty hard for me to imagine that somebody would steal cast iron skillets. I mean, and there really hadn't been too many people in here, other than a couple housekeepers, and I just couldn't imagine them stealing my cast iron cookware out of everything they could have took. Oh, I'm going to take these heavy, big, ginormous cast iron Dutch ovens and steal them. You know what I mean? Just didn't make sense. So it was like completely strange of what happened to my cast iron. I had 2 cast iron Dutch ovens, and then I had several skillets and a cornbread pan, and they were all completely missing. And I was shocked. I mean, I just kept looking back at and going, really? What has happened? So, of course, I searched the rest of the kitchen thinking maybe one of the housekeepers moved them, couldn't find them anywhere. My friends coming by, I would tell them, my cast iron's all missing. Like, I don't know what's going on. And they're looking at me like, are you nuts? And I'm like, man, I know it sounds crazy, but like, I don't even know how to think with this, and I would show them where they were supposed to be and say, how could I miss them? Look, they're just gone. And then about 3 weeks later, so I guess they came back about 3 weeks ago. And so it had to start like 6 weeks ago. So 3 weeks ago, I go in there, and I open the cabinet, and lo and behold, there's my cast iron. And I'm like, what? But it wasn't all of it. The Dutch ovens and a couple skillets are still missing. But I got back a few skillets, and I got back the cornbread pan, and it was just really strange. Like, they could, I mean, they couldn't have been stolen, but let's just say they were. You think somebody came back and put them back in? I mean, which led me back to one of the possibilities you and I had discussed before, being gaslighted or psyoped or something, because sometimes it'll make you think that. But
Hmm.
anyway, so I had the cast iron, disappear and show back up. And then when I moved into this house, it cost me quite a bit. There's always a big outlay when you move, and then I had some repairs to do and a couple little upgrades, and so I did that. And um, so I'd spent quite a bit of money, and I had these bar stools out in the clubhouse that. Um, when I looked at my kitchen and my kitchen table and everything, I was like, oh, those would just go perfect in here. And they're like wrought iron and um, brushed suede leather. And so I thought, oh, those would be so perfect in here. So I brought them in from the clubhouse and was going to put them at my huge island bar in my kitchen, and went to slide them under and they didn't fit because they're actual bar stools instead of countertop stools. And there's about a 4-inch difference in the height of those. And so when I tried to slide them forward, the armrests ran into the countertop. And so I was like so bummed, and I like stood there and looked at it for 30 minutes, like debating, am I going to buy new ones? Am I going to cut the legs off of these? Am I going to, what am I? And I was so heartbroken because they were such perfect color. And I did check with the store and I couldn't get the smaller size. And so I I was literally thinking about cutting the legs off of them, and then I ended up deciding that they were too expensive to cut the legs off of. I wasn't going to do that. And so I also, because of all the cash outlay I just made, I decided I wasn't going to buy any new ones either. And so I put them back out in the clubhouse. And so all this time, every time I have somebody over, I think about those stupid stools because it's like, oh, if those had fit, this would be perfect. If those had only fit, this would be perfect. If they had just fit, you know? And so I've been thinking this for 5 years. And a couple weeks ago, I had somebody over helping me do some things around here. And I don't know what made me tell him because I've already tried the stools and I knew they didn't fit. But I don't know, maybe I was thinking he'd help me talk me into cutting the legs off or something. But I told him to go out and get those stools and bring them in. And we did that. He helped me and we did that and put them in the kitchen, and they slid right up underneath the countertop bar. And I was just sitting there looking at it like, I can't even believe this is happening. Like, that's nuts. It's completely nuts.
You manifested.
I had to. Like, I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I know that I stood for 30 minutes looking at those bouncing into the countertop, seeing them not slide under, and was like completely upset about it. And now all of a sudden they just go right under. So that was kind of crazy. And then I also had to deal with my outlet. I On this island when I first moved in, of course, I went to look for electrical outlets on the island, and at one side of my kitchen I have double ovens, and at the other side I have a stovetop. And on the end where the double ovens are, there was an outlet, and I was like, right on, they did it right. They put an outlet in the island. And so the first thing I did was run down to the other end to see if there was an outlet down there as well. And there wasn't. And I was like, what? Like, why would you put an outlet at one end and not go ahead and put it at the other as well? I mean, you already have the electric there. Just run it to the other side as well. It like literally would only have cost a couple dollars to do that, and they didn't do it. And I was kind of blown away because this is a pretty well appointed home. So I was completely miffed by it because number one, it wouldn't have cost much to just do it. And because number two, the end where the stove is, where there is no outlet, is also the end where the sink is and where most of the prep area for food is. So if you need any extra blenders, toasters, mixers, anything like that, the extra outlet would be perfect right there at the end of the island, right there where you're doing your food prep, right? And they didn't put it. And I was just like, I cannot believe these people. Why would you do so well on a home like this and then just mess up those little things? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it like really bugged me, but I've had to live with it for the last 5 years. And every time we need to do something, we have to go to the other end of the island. And like a few days ago, I walk into the kitchen and look down, and holy bejeebus, there's an outlet on that end of the island.
Oh my gosh. So you are manifesting.
I,
That's why I think the Mandela effect might be us causing it.
well, you know, it either is that or it's my invisible repairman that I've been telling my sister about for 3 or 4 years now, and he finally decided to give me my outlet I wanted. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to say about this stuff. I just know the people that have come to this house quite a bit know for a fact there was no outlet down there. And now all of a sudden there's an outlet. And I mean, if I was too cheap to buy the bar stools, you can bet I probably didn't call an electrician and say, put me in an outlet. You know what I mean? But
Hmm.
yeah, so I'm very happy with these changes. You know, my bar stools fit. I got my outlet. Um,
I'm still giggling about your repairman.
I mean, that's been going on for about 2 or 3 years now. That
Yeah.
I've been telling my sister, and she thought I was completely nuts. But I would say, "Okay, look, you're gonna think I'm crazy, but I swear to God, I got an
We find
invisible
ourselves saying that a lot.
repairman." I'm right. I'm like, I got an invisible repairman, and she's like, "What?" And I'm like, I swear to God, like things in my house, they break and then they get fixed all by themselves. I hear silence, total crickets. I'm like, no, no, I'm serious. Like, really, silence. She's thinking, oh my God, it's happening.
She's lost it.
She's full on dementia and stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm serious. Like, really, like, let me. You remember I told you about my, stove was broken. Like, and now it works. And she was like, uh huh, uh huh. Have you checked your credit card statement? Like, yeah, no, really, there's nobody's come here. There's been nobody. And, but I mean, it would be even burnt out light bulbs. All of a sudden the next day that light bulb would work and I'd be like, oh, you know,
Yep.
the girl that doesn't get freaked by weird stuff. It's just, when it gets too much, then I start going, okay, what's going on here? This is even high level for me. Um, because there's so many of them that, when we're in these talks, I kind of forget about them until I run across them again. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot to mention this or that. But, yeah.
The same thing happens to me. I'll
I'm waiting till
talk
I
about
wake
something on a
up.
stream and I'm like, ah, dang, I forgot to tell them that or this.
Right. I'm waiting until I wake up and my pool is remodeled.
Hey, invite me.
I'm hoping for that beachfront entry.
Yeah, sounds good.
Right? Why not? I mean, hey, if we're gonna dream, let's dream, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, do you have any family members that are um, aware or awake?
Yeah. I've got one that um she's kind of in and out. Depends on what universe I'm in. You know, she's in the process of getting herself straightened out. So it's really strange because in some of the universes, she is already awakened and cool and awesome. And in other universes, she's not quite there yet and it ain't pretty. We'll just put it like that.
Yeah,
So like one of the ways I can tell, if I've moved or what's going on is to contact her and see who am I dealing with, um, aside from other ways that I tell what's going on, because with her it could be still her and I'm still with, one of the good ones, but her liver's overloaded at the moment.
mm,
So I have to kind of watch for that as well. So I check other things as well, but yeah, I've had her flip flop on me. Um, and then I have a couple other ones that are just starting to. Um, they'll still tell me I'm crazy, but if somebody else tells them the exact same thing I said, they'll come back and tell me as if they're giving me some news.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Stuff I've been telling them for, 3 decades or 1 decade or whatever. And they'll come back and say, oh, I was talking to this guy and he said da 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 da. And I'm like, yeah. So, yeah, I've got 2 or 3 that are just starting. And I got one that's um, kind of well on her way, but still flopping around a little bit.
yeah. I I don't have that. Most of mine are blissfully asleep or in denial of what they have go on right in front of their own eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, too
Yeah.
scared.
Well, don't be surprised if they don't start hearing a lot of things that you've been telling them for a long time. They'll hear it from somebody else and come back and tell you. Like, for example, my brother, I've told him for years certain things about his health and formulas and this and that and different things and tried to give him stuff. And, I'll load him up with stuff and the next thing I know, he'll be saying, your stuff don't work. Your stuff don't work. And I'm like, well, did you take it? Yeah, I took it. I took it all. But then, 6 weeks later, he's got some complaint. And I'll say, well, do you have any of so and so? Oh, yeah, I got a whole big thing of it. Well, if you took it all, you wouldn't have a whole big thing of it. Okay. So busted. But then he'll he'll hear from somebody else about something and come, for example, he called me a while back and said, yeah, I was talking to this guy at work, which he is a construction project supervisor.
Mm,
And so he had one of the construction workers was telling him about um, a formula called MMS. And so he calls me. Well, what we should have been doing, we should have been doing this MMS. This guy at work was telling me all about it. And I said, really? Who was this guy? Oh, he's one of the sheetrockers. he's one of the rockers at work, and I just got into a conversation with him, and he's telling me all about this stuff, and that's what we should be doing. And I said, well, if you'll remember correctly, back in '06, that stuff that I was giving you that you called ass juice, yeah, that was MMS. And he was like, no, no, no. I'm like, yeah, 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 it sure was. And so he gets off the phone with me because he can't stand that I knew about that, and I tried to give it to him and he wouldn't take it. He couldn't stand that. So he got off the phone. Well, then he calls me back the next day and he goes, well, uh, whose brand were you using? I think you got some that was messed up. Well, I was manufacturing nutritional supplements and making a quite nice living doing it. And had an excellent reputation and had been doing it for over a decade. And he says, well, whose brand were you using? I said, I was using my brand. I made it. Well, how'd you do that? Well, I got sodium chloride. I followed Jim Umble's recipe and I made it. And well, I think you did it wrong. No, I didn't do it wrong. I did it right. It works. It's perfect. Well, I got to go, but I'll call you later. Well, the next day he calls me back and he says, well, the problem was that you were using vinegar and you should have been using citrus. And that's why it tasted so bad. And I said, well, Jerry, if you'll remember, the first time I gave it to you, you said it was horrible and it was ass juice. And that was vinegar. Then I switched to citrus and you told me it was even worse. And he said, well, I think you just didn't make it right. But see, he could do anything. I mean, he couldn't listen to me tell him about it, even though this is my profession. I've made a wonderful living at it. I've spent 30 years researching. I've diagnosed my whole family. I figured out MTHFR off of an article about autism and diagnosed my family. I also diagnosed several SNPs before we even knew that we had them. And he still can't listen to me. He'd rather listen to a sheet rocker on a
At work.
construction site. So you will go through that with your family. Don't be surprised if
Yeah.
they don't come back and the very things that you've been telling them for decades, they're going to come and act like they're telling you something and giving you some news. I mean, they're going to come back and say, oh, did you realize we're all connected? Uh, duh. Been telling you that for 2 decades. I mean, but that kind of stuff will happen.
Hmm.
But they ain't gonna believe you. They would believe me in a heartbeat. Probably your whole family would believe anything I said, but they ain't gonna believe you. And they won't even believe me if you bring me to them.
Hmm.
If I find them some other kind of way, they'll believe anything I say.
Hmm.
It's amazing. It's crazy.
It's like they have an automatic circuit breaker, and if you start talking, it's like their mind shuts off.
Yeah. I mean, given the choice of, who to learn how to, work computers or sign up for something, your family would probably rather learn from me than you. I mean,
Hmm.
that's pretty sad. I
It's
don't know shit about it. I call you to get answers. I don't know anything about it. And I'll bet you, given the choice, your family would rather learn from me not knowing squat about it than to learn from you who knows how. It's probably that way for everybody that's listening. Yes, chlorine dioxide, MMS. That's it. I just happened to look up and see that. Wow.
yep, Sir Steve. Yep, he's spent a lot of time uh, researching uh, the MTHFR and stuff, and so he's he's got some knowledge going on there too. Definitely.
Well, I'll tell you, I've never seen anything like this. What's happening right now, you know, you were talking about manifesting. Let me tell you something on that as far as healthcare. Like I said, I've been into natural healthcare since I was a teenager. I made a very nice living at it, and have studied for 30 years, still study to this day, still research to this day. And
Like me.
I have always seen a huge time lag on when the natural health care profession gets onto something and when the general public begins to discuss it in general.
Big lag.
Usually, yes, it's usually, I mean, I've seen it decades, you know, decades and decades for them to finally grasp a hold of something. And this, I've never seen anything like this MTHFR. I mean, when I first learned about it, um, what, 3 years ago, it had only been out for a few years, which is generally when I get a hold of stuff very early on. And by now, everybody would still be clueless normally. And yet, we have even some doctors are starting to know. A lot, for some reason, a lot of police officers. I don't know how or why that's happening, but there seem to be a very large portion of police officers knowing about MTHFR.
It's
Um,
interesting.
it is an interesting little tidbit, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
But and then just the mainstream public, you know, normally we would be screaming about natural protocols, and now everybody knows. You know, not everybody. I mean, still, obviously, I'm still working hard, but compared to the numbers that we used to get at this time frame, it's phenomenal how many people are already learning about this and starting to handle things naturally. Um, it's amazing how many people are just moving to, you know, better food and taking supplements and stuff such as that. So
Yeah. Let's see. We're at 8:54. This has been awesome. This has been so good. You are such a wonderful guest. And Spirit is amazing. Like I said, she's a wealth of information. Huge, huge.
oh, stop it. More, stop it. More. What? Well, who's screaming more? Stop it.
But I think what we've gone to almost 2 hours. So we'll let everybody's brains digest everything they heard. And I'd really love for you to come back and talk again because I know they enjoy um, the words of wisdom, especially because you've been awake for a very long time. And
Yeah,
I
well, I
think
did take some naps. Don't get it messed up.
I know I did.
I took a couple naps, but I'm back up now.
Yeah, I took the hamster wheel of life nap for a while too, so and shut things down basically.
Well,
Just
that was
shut
done.
it off.
Yeah, that was done to us, though. You know.
Yeah, thanks to the education system.
Well, not only that, but also the sabotage we talked about earlier with the DNA, the MTHFR, the endocrine system. All of that was to put us asleep and separate us.
Mm,
And they did a very fine job. So, um, you know, that's exactly why the Bible says don't judge another man's heart because you don't know. That's why we have to observe and let it go and love them anyway. Handle them if you have to, you know, lock them up, do whatever you have to do, boot them from your space if you have to, do whatever you have to do to handle them. But, you know, you got to love them too, because this is how we get stuck. And we have to be the example to show others how to do this. And it's hard because of everything that was done to us. You know, we were manipulated, we were messed with, we were poisoned, we were um, our bodies were tinkered with, and our minds were tinkered with. And so it's been hard, but it's getting better because we have answers, and we have each other, and we can help each other and change this into the experience that we want to have. So if I had anything to say in parting, it would be focus on what it is that you want, not what you don't want, or not what's not optimum. Just like you and I were talking about, when people do these behaviors and you're going, what is wrong with them? Well, they've been very put upon. You know, their endocrine systems, their DNA, their livers, kidneys, adrenals, is all affecting them. And so observe it, let it go, love them, handle them, try to teach them, and try not to go into that negative vibe, but stay in your own lane.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Well, for this evening, we're going to probably say goodnight. I just wanted to remind everybody, if you are in our chat, feel free to invite others if you're certain they're one of us with the empath and the MTHFR, and please, by all means, and go ahead and invite them to the chat um, over in our Google Hangouts. And then if you, uh, let's see, oh, and anybody that's new watching this, yeah, it's like I lost it for a minute. It's like, where'd it go? Where'd
No,
it go? It's here.
I'm so sorry. I didn't even mean to do that, but I was just like, I haven't been able to read the comments because I was too busy yakking my jaws. And then I'm scrolling back through and I see a comment from Aaron Coiner, uses Mandela effect to upgrade house. LOL. That's so funny, Aaron. You made me really LOL, and I didn't mean to.
That is funny. I saw that post too, and I was giggling while you were talking. But,
Yeah, I didn't really keep up with the chat. I wish I
that's
would have.
okay.
But
But yeah, if you're new watching the stream and you're interested in joining us for networking with each other and support for each other and understanding and putting out positive energy, because we're transmuting negative energy when we do that. Um, and just the camaraderie and the stories with each other. It's amazing, the energy in the chat room. We have so much fun. We let our inner child out to play, and it's so much fun. But if you're interested in joining us there, just send me an email to criticalbreak@outlook.com. And Spirit has a channel, and I'm going to put a link to her channel down in the description box. And there's other links down there too, like my email and things like that. So if you're interested, do send me an email and I'll get you an invite sent there.
and I
And
just noticed a comment from Steve Collins. He says, "I've been fighting my whole life. I'm just struggling to let go of crap." Steve, and that's the way to do it. It just practice, honey. It's hard. Nobody's gonna say this is easy. You know, like I said, I always say that very flippantly. Just observe it and let it go. But it just practice.
mhm,
And just real quickly, an exercise that somebody did with me one time that really showed the impact of how we can get astray or back on track. is I had been being gang stalked by a police department, and this man came to help me with some exercises, and he said, because I was trying to get over it and let it go, the trauma of it all, and not hate these people, because I knew I didn't have to hate them. But he said, listen, I want you to get the idea of really hating those guys. I said, yeah, easy done. He goes, okay, now get the idea of really loving them. And I had to sit there for a minute, and then, okay, finally, I can get the idea of loving them. That's about it. Okay, good. Now get the idea of hating them. Okay, done. All right, now get the idea of loving them. Took a little bit, but okay, I guess I can. And then we kept going back and forth until I got it. And then once I like loosened up that hinge, then I realized that it was just as easy to go either way. So once you get that loosened up, it's just as easy to love them as it is to hate them. I swear. It doesn't seem like it would be, but once you get past that initial hump, it really, really is. So maybe that little exercise will help you, Steve, in letting go of crap. Like, get the idea of holding on to this crap. Get the idea of letting go of it. Or get the idea of loving those people. Get the idea of hating them. Until you get it loosened up where you can do either way just as easy. And I mean, it only took me a couple of minutes of doing that before I just stopped and looked at him and said, it's just as easy for me to love him as it is to hate him. And he said, now you got it. So Steve, maybe that will help you, but it does take some practice, but you can get there. I have faith in you.
Yeah, me too. I have faith in all of them. They're amazing, amazing people. Angels, not people, angels. Yeah, there was one more question we're going to take too. Aaron was asking about how do you know if you have MTHFR? They hadn't heard of it before.
Okay, well, you want to look for symptoms in yourself or your family, and it can be pretty wide ranging, but when you have even one or two of these in one or two of the people in the family, it would be worth investing in a test. And so you're looking at things like heart attacks, strokes, diabetes, addictions. Addictions are big. Mental health problems, quote unquote, mental health problems. Um, Autoimmune disorders, strange maladies that can't be diagnosed, thyroid disorders, or any other endocrine disorders. If you or anyone in your family have any of those, alcoholism, addiction, any of the other things that I've mentioned, then you're probably an MTHFR. If you're chronically sick, or if you're especially if you're chronically sick and you've
Allergies.
tried to use things to get better. Yes, allergies is one. Um, and if that is the case, the best thing to do is to go to 23andMe and take their $200 Ancestry Plus health test. Now, I know that you can get an MTHFR test cheaper at your doctor, but all he's going to tell you is one or two types of MTHFR, and possibly if you're single or double allele. Other than that, he's going to give you no data. If you go to 23andMe, they're going to give you all of your data. Then you can take that raw data and you can upload that raw data to StrateGene. If you Google Dr. Ben Lynch and StrateGene, you can upload your raw data that comes from 23andMe. You upload that to StrateGene, and they send you back a methylation pathway. What that shows you is all the places where you cannot break down certain nutrients. So, like for me, for example, before I even got mine back, I knew that I couldn't break down glutathione. And so I had gone to methionine because glutathione breaks down to methionine. And I couldn't handle methionine either. So I went to SAMe. And even the SAMe, I have to be careful with it. I have to be careful with all of my methyls because of my liver. But at least the SAMe I can break down a little better. But when I got my methylation pathways, of course it said you cannot break down glutathione and you cannot break down methionine. You're going to have to take SAMe and you're going to have to get, food sources. So the StrateGene report will cost you $50. It comes to you instantaneously. The 23andMe might take 6 to 8 weeks, depending. Sometimes much less, but that
It
one's
is
too.
money well spent.
It is. It really is, because it gives you all that raw data that you can then upload to StrateGene, and then you can find out exactly where is it that I'm not breaking down food, because everywhere that happens, those components that you can't break down then circulate in your body as poison and clog up your
And
liver.
you get toxic like I am in B6 right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They build up on you and they stack up on your liver and they cause you problems with your liver, your kidneys, and then your endocrine system, which is adrenals, thyroid, hypothalamus, pituitary, all of that. So, yeah, the best thing to do is look at your own health and your family history. And if you think you have it, and want to treat it naturally, you can try to just, do our protocols, or you can do the 23andMe and the Ben and the StrateGene thing.
Yeah. And just Google MTHFR in all caps. Google it, and there's a wealth of information about how to identify if you think it's possible that you have it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think I'll get the links for 123 and Me and StrateGene, and I'll put them down below in the description, and I'll keep them down there underneath all my videos so that
You should put
people in
Christian
the
truth
future will.
too.
Huh?
You should put Christian truth too with the MTHFR video.
Yes, yes. Actually, I
Because,
have I updated today all my videos with new links under all of them.
yeah.
So I've got Christian Truth under there, and
Yeah, because that video gives them some extra tips, you
mhm.
know, the whole buddy system and a whole lot of things in there that they probably won't get anywhere else.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And another reason why I put Christian Truth's link down there is because you can type in their channel name and you have to dig to find their channel. I mean, really
Yeah,
dig. So
yeah,
that's why I put the link underneath all my videos so you guys can find that channel.
yeah, it's kind of hidden.
Yeah, because they
Not
did
on
do
purpose.
that with mine too, I think, because people have trouble finding it sometimes.
I think YouTube does it on purpose.
I wouldn't put it past them.
The
You
others,
gotta
they're,
love them.
they're trying to hide us.
Right.
Okay, they ain't the first ones to stick me in a basement.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you so much for coming on. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it. I know they enjoy
Well,
listening.
thank you so much for having me. We always have so much fun when we talk, although tonight I feel like I ran away with it. I'm
Oh, no, you were great. I mean, I talk all the time, so it's nice when someone else talks about, like I said, I'd rather hear about all of you than me. I'm bored with what I know my story.
I know, but when we get on the phone, we just back and forth and yeah, I know, and yeah, I know.
Yeah, Spirit is awesome. We have so much fun giggling and yeah, cutting up and yeah, talk about wild stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, I hope all of you have a lovely evening, and I will take a break right after the stream for 10 to 15 minutes, and then I'll be over in our Google Hangouts chat for anybody who wants to talk and discuss anything or have any questions or anything. So anyway, I will say good night and say good night, Spirit.
Good night. Thank you so much. As always, you were lovely and it was a pleasure.
Oh, you're so sweet. Anyway, love you. We both do. From here to the stars. Have a good night. Sweet dreams.